Dynamo roller is the only heavyweight roller, and there will be a whole lot to say about this. First up, painting patterns. Pretty wide coverage, but doesn't paint its feet like all the other rollers, unfortunately. With the wall paint, you can also do this thing, pretty much like all the other rollers. We have a vertical flick as well, which behaves exactly as you'd expect here. The vertical coverage, that's a little bit... I'm painting fish sticks. Aim high, and hopefully it will be dripping down enough. Yeah, it can be a little bit inconsistent. And ink usage, it's always 20% per flick exactly. Doesn't matter whether vertical or horizontal. Oh, okay, apparently I refilled a bit there. But yeah, it's exactly 20% every time. After bomb, you have one the half flicks. That the half flick is not doing anything. Demonstrate rolling a bit as well. Ink usage, whenever you roll, you wanna be rolling a lot with this, in fact. Well, as most notably you see killing corpse here. The roll is 400 damage, that is your strongest attack even. Use it as much as you can. And while doing that, watch the ink tank, you don't wanna, like, off guard with suddenly having no more paint at an enemy right in front of you, and no more ink, sorry. Something that you also saw here is I refilled by standing still. It works for all rollers and is especially important for this one. Nothing you can do is jump while rolling, then you will not refill, but your ink will not be consumed as well. I'm jumping a lot here and I'm not using up my ink. As soon as I'm actually staying on the ground, it will be used. Yeah, you need every little drop of it, so whenever you're actually hitting nothing and have no reason to paint either or anything, do some jumps, why not? Alright, so rolling deals 400 damage, that is your main attack. Let's talk about the other attacks. Horizontal flick, 200 damage max, but only from relatively close range. You see that wasn't 200. This was 200. There are really only two uses for this. One use is to simply start your roll, of course, the fastest way to get rolling. The other way is scrappers, or lids when you're on top of them. And you have this combo. You've horizontal flick it at once and then you roll into it. Then it's dead. Yeah, that is the horizontal flick. Then there is the vertical flick. It deals 300 damage. A pretty long range. See that here? The 300. The 300. The 300. Now it's 150. This is like the limit here. Hasn't always been like that. They did patch that in recently. One of the very few, if not even the only change to Salmon run weapons in that patch, not sure. Do not know why they did it, and it feels like it was an oversight because they did actually buff the Dynamo and PvP in that patch. Yeah, we have a really long-ranged, powerful vertical flick now. And you can do some interesting things with that. You could just snipe eels from afar with that. Of course, any steal that gets triggered ever, as long as you are ready to get that out in time. Of course, I feel like a complete idiot for doing a solo freelance 9s run with Dynamo without actually knowing that. Because right before that rotation came up, they did this patch. Yeah, I didn't know, so I played Dynamo in a way that I would always get up close to the steelheads in order to kill them when there really was no need to. However, even with that, it's still a very unflexible weapon and they did absolutely nothing about its ink hunger, its mobility and stuff, which are just really bad. Quite literally, the glass cannonist of glass cannons. Now let's talk about some other bosses. Fish sticks, not really worth talking more about. It's absolutely horrible. I mean, you can hit a few of them with this. You really don't wanna. You really don't wanna climb them either, really. You just wanna paint them at the very most, but even that you kinda don't wanna do because there are many other things you can do, most likely. If you ever happen to get like pestered by fish stick paint, and try to get like right next to it. If you stand right next to the pole, then that is where they cannot paint. So that is where you can have your paint, that is where you can jump out of into safety, hopefully. Helpful with all weapons, but this of course, when push comes to shove. Other bosses, Drizzler, same as the other rollers. You just flick at it once and get stuck into it. Another thing you can do when they are actually jumping, you can snipe him, like you can hit him once with a vertical flick, and then camp their jump with a roll. When they land on you, they will just die. Do 1,000,000 damage per second. At Salmon, what you're of course really good at with them is to trigger them. Just roll forward under them, there's hardly anything that can go wrong. Then back out. For actually killing them, you do need to have enough ink for that. Because you do need to do that full flick and then also roll to them, and then the survive after that is grabs you. Yeah, it's not really a big deal or anything, just something to note. Like, do not trigger it with your last lick of ink and then expect to kill it or anything. Make sure you have enough. The bosses are a big shot, of course. Big shot matchup is really great. You just stand in front of it as it approaches the cannon and it will just pretty much delete itself. And you can also do what you can do with the other rollers. Just flick straight at it and hug it and also go down really fast, same thing. You are, however, not too great at actually managing the big shot cannon for a whole wave. If there's scrappers or eels or stuff like that coming, on mouse, of course. Wait, no, not mouse, but yeah, scrappers most notably, then you. But yeah, if the enemies are right, like just big shots do stuff, you can just delete them and this extra basket. Will be nice. Right, aside from fish sticks, there are of course the older statics that are really big problems for this as well. However, the Stinger matchup, it get better in this game. I've already explained this at the Splat roller, so check out that for more details, but you can actually roll Stingers if you have like the right surfaces around to them. Then you can kill them really fast, but your short version is you need a wall or you need some high ground or low ground, anything like that. And then it should usually be really easy to kill the Stingers. And to some extent it works on flat ground as well, but that I do not quite understand yet. Distant. Right, that I believe. Oh, yeah, right, no, eels. It's you can actually just roll into from like the opposite direction to other movement. Yeah, let's say this thing here is the eel head. You're letting that pass you and then intercept the tail, which is right here, and do it really fast. Also works with our rollers, and Dynamo it's more important because it's don't you have do anything with it. And then independently of bosses or anything, just don't be too greedy with your ink or anything. Whenever you use bombs, then don't use the main weapon at all. Just chill and make sure before you use the bomb you have paint around you that you can refill and chill in. Yeah, patience. You need a lot of patience with this thing. It's not easy to use this well. And even if used well, it's a very vulnerable weapon. Some say it is the worst. Yeah, it has some of the biggest downsides imaginable in this game, but also some of the biggest upsides. Alright, and speaking of those upsides, let's talk about night waves. First up is Seeking. Stand in front of the Goldie, move slightly left and right as it hits you. You will be deleting that Goldie very freaking fast. If you can manage to do that anywhere near the basket, then you're gonna get really high golden X scores as well. And that is of course dependent on Goldie paths. But for those that are not near basket, of course you still need to get snatches or other things. Yeah, this is pretty much the most broken Seeking weapon that exists. I only wish Seeking was well better in this game. It was better in Splatoon 2 actually. It was nerfed a little bit by the fact that lessers are just always spawning from the shore and then also out of the Goldie Gasha. In the old game, they only came out of Gashas that didn't have the Goldie exactly. So what you would do is like start with opening the fire Gashas, so these lessers will take a while till they even bother you, and it's a much better time. However, in freelance, the new Seeking is much better, of course, and that is really nice. Because freelance Seeking, it was a problem in Splatoon 2, let me tell you. But alright, enough about those memories. Or night waves. Rush plays the same as all other rollers. For the weapons in the rotation that are not the Dynamo, make sure to chip the Goldie a bit. But the Goldie actually dies. You know, you're dealing 400 damage, got 500 HP. You really don't want the Dynamo to be pushed back. Of course, do not roll too aggressively forward and anything, because you will be refilling more. Just stand as still as possible. Hold the stick ever so slightly forward, like this. Less than that. Yeah, the jumps were just that. And whenever there is like nothing actually coming at you, then release the control stick and that should let you out of it. Out again. Like so. And that's actually really low delay. There's make use of that. After flicking, of course, the delay is very high. You're seeing that right here. But after rolling, that is nice. Realize this one is interesting. You are, of course, for the most part on small fry duty. However, you can also deal a lot of damage to Gorillas easily. First up, for helping with stun. Let's say the Gorilla is coming like moving like straight at you, whether you're targeted or not. What you can do is just do a vertical flick, and chances are you will hit the tail with that, like from right in front of it. It is not super obvious, but good to know. You can deal a lot of damage to it that way, so it should be easy to stun once it's actually close to the team. Then once it is stunned, you happen to have some kind of high ground to be standing on. Like this here, like say this is the top platform on spawning grounds near basket. From there you can actually roll into the stunned gorilla and kill it really fast. But doesn't work on every map and all positions. And you can also do something with jumping at the gorilla when you're a bit lower. Against some high ground. I believe this works on Sockeye Station. Oh, don't quote me on that. But yeah, feel free to try it whenever it might come up. Yeah, Mudmouth, prioritize Goldies, but also feel free to deal with the smaller lessers. Seems to be much better value than throwing bombs at them. Nothing too special here. And Mothership is a bit interesting. The whole Dynamo cannot really be considered a good weapon for Mothership, just because of how slow it is. Slow animations, bad ink usage, you name it. Just the same problems as in most other waves, really. However, it's still perfectly workable. There are a few things you wanna pay attention to when playing. First up, changes quite a bit depending on whether you're dealing with a big or small tide, really. Because the bigger it is, the more lessers there will be, and that means you can always feel free to spend some time to delete lessers. around when the mothership is approaching the basket roughly. So that people are not gonna get bothered by it and can get those eggs easily. Like whenever it's repelled and stuff. And on the other hand, on small tides, like say some really broken high tides, on those, when the team can keep up with the Chinooks well enough that there will actually be no lessers whatsoever, or barely any, you then wanna do is really just grab golden eggs and not even use the Dynamo roller at all. Because the animations are really slow and they waste many seconds. Really important for overfishing. But yeah, in whatever case that is actually not a given that the team will just shoot everything, then the animations are slow. This thing does have really good coverage. You can hit lessers and Chinooks at the same time with this with horizontal flick. Painting with it as well. Like, it's not the end of the world. There are many different modes to play this on Mothership, and it might not always be clear what is the correct one, so that is why I went so much into detail here with this. Be creative, and that is all I have to say about the Dynamo. Okay, I actually forgot a few things with the Dynamo, even with how long all of that was. When you first up the Mom matchup, there are different options to deal with it. First thing, the most traditional one is to roll against it 3 times for 400 damage each. Normally it's a 2 cycle. It can be made in 1 cycle if you get pressed against... if you are like between the Ma and a wall and get pressed against it and stuff. But you can do that when you're already rolling. When you're not already rolling, another thing that you can do is flick at it and get stuck in it, similar to other big HP enemies with Aurelis in general. That is probably the fastest way to kill it and the most efficient one for sure. Yeah, if you are not close and cannot get close, then of course still completely fine to use bombs as normally. You can avoid it, that is really nice. Right, and then the other thing is Cohort Charge. It's hard to remember Cohort Charge because for the most part it's like really just a glorified day wave. Yeah, so the final word hasn't been spoken yet on whether it's best to have Dynamo inside cannon or outside. Personally, I think it's just because of how like immobile it is. You should generally prefer to put it in the cannon still. It's like really not that fast at collecting eggs, and the cannon should be shooting the coax anyway, so no point in rolling over them. However, near the end of the wave, I would say having a Dynamo clear the coax is probably more powerful than having someone in cannon. Because all or at least most of the bosses should be dead by then. It's just coax, and you can also multitask some eggs with it. You couldn't do if someone were in cannon and also had to refill their bunch and stuff. So yeah. The cleanup, great to have the Dynamo out, could be nice. Right, hopefully that should be all for real now.